most of them has not the same origin. Most of them massively are converted to Judaism from the 200 before Jesus Christ till the 18th century, 19th century.
When you, Harry, the children of Israel, when they were in Egypt for 400 years, did they? Would it be safe to say that they mixed with a lot of the Egyptians and the Cushites that lived in the land?
I mean, we see, Joseph had an Egyptian wife, right?
Correct. Was the Egyptians back then, were they black or were they white?
I don't think that society back then.
No. You know the history. You know what Herodotus said. You know different scholars say. You know what the pictures look like on the walls of Egypt. You know what the wooden statues of the Egyptians with afros and brown skin, what they look like. So were they black or were they white?
Yeah. Well, just to put this into context, you're answering my elaborate question with going back in time, 1,000 or 2,000 years. I just want to throw that out there. But from my understanding of history, yes, we're dealing with a period of dark-skinned people, which I've never denied on record that was the color of most people back then. But I also know that there were codes and societies that had mixed colors because your color didn't determine your standing in a society. It was rather your class, maybe on your wealth, etc. So you would have had in ancient Rome or ancient Greece maybe very influential, high-profile, dark-skinned people who had powerful positions. And I would speculate over the last 1,000, 2,000 years that may have been the same in Egypt. But let me go again. We're dancing around the point that I'm trying to really solidify here for your viewers who, when I'm not on the line, you can kind of speak about me and what I've said and spin the story your way. But now I'm here, I'm in front of your face, and I'm calling you out and saying what's good.
You're right. So what we're gonna do is because you like to dance, and you like to say a lot of mumbo jumbo, but Rabbi, wait, Harry, listen, Harry.
Okay.
The sons of Ham, were they people of color? Were they black? Were they people of color? Were they black people? Were they? Yes or no? That's the question. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. Were they black or were they white? The sons of Ham.
Yeah. Well, let me just be very clear with this. I've been saying this the whole time. Irregardless of
this much, just answer the question, Harry. Say yes or no. Were they black or were they white? You should know this.
I know for certain that people back then were marrying and having genetic breeding amongst multiple different tribes and colored-skinned people, and I know for certain that color had nothing to do with the formation of.
Harry, you just said that. Harry. You're repeating yourself. What color were the Cushites? The Cushite Nubians, the sons of Ham. What color were the Cushite Nubians?
I'll tell you like this. In my world of scholarly debate, when you ask me a question, you would have to say what point you're going to try to prove.
Okay, I'm going to show you my point. So basically, I'm going to prove to you from the time before the Exodus to after the Exodus, before the Israelites had a king with King Saul, before they had King David, before they had King Solomon, that the Hebrew Israelites in those days were people of color. They were not the Ashkenazi Sephardic Jews. Therefore, I don't care what you say about the XLR from 900 AD. If you could trace your lineage back to King Solomon, King David, then you're basically saying something that's impossible, because the people back in those days, around 1000 BC, around 900 BC, they had just literally not within 500 years got out of Egypt and were running around the wilderness. Then they went to the land of Canaan. In the land of Canaan, they were mixing around with the Canaanites. They were mixing around. Well, they already had Egyptian blood in them. They already had Cushite blood with them with Moses and Zipporah. And then you add another component. You have Cushite, Egyptian, and then Canaanite. In the book of Judges, chapter 3, it talks about the children of Israel and how all the people started mixing with the Canaanites. But then this is the thing. Now you go to the time of King Solomon, King David, before you even had any sieges from Babylon or Assyria. But you're saying that you still can date back your lineage going back to King David, King Solomon, 1,000% with 1,000% certainty. And if I ask you, were the sons of Ham black or white? You know that they were black. You know that the Canaanites were black. You know the Egyptians were black. You know that the Cushites were black. So the Hebrew Israelites came out of Egypt, and before they even had King Saul, they were already black from mixing with the sons of Ham for almost 1,000 years. And then you're gonna tell me that during the Assyrian and Babylonian siege, that the children of Israel all of a sudden turned to what looks like you, a Sephardic Jew with red hair and a red beard, and you're saying around 600 BC, which is about 300 years after King David, King Solomon, that they all of a sudden changed from black to white. Where did that happen? Where did that happen, Harry? Because you just basically said that from 900 AD on is where you have written records.
You're not cracking any codes over here. Let me just give a quick response. You wasted so many words to prove a point that you didn't need proving.
You're not using critical thinking. You're not using logic and critical thinking, Harry.
That's
critical
where you're
thinking and
wrong.
logic.
I'll just dissect your thought right now and let you know that you're very wrong. First of all, you don't need to prove to anyone and waste time to say that the children of Israel weren't white originally. If you look at what Judah the Prince wrote down 2,000 years ago, he was an exilarch, which exilarchs were the representatives of the house of David all the way to the year 900. He wrote down that the children of Israel were not white. So the Jews themselves have an original teacher. So you're wasting all this time telling your people. You could have just looked into the Torah and our literature, and that would have said for certain. But, you look at all of a sudden, King Solomon, let's say he had 1,000 wives. You don't know the genetic mixing of the people of Israel. We recorded which families were from the line of King David, which families were converts. And there was, Greeks and Israelites were having relations in the Mediterranean area. And the Israelites went into Africa. And they did go towards Iraq, and they went towards Syria, and they went towards India. They went around the whole world. This narrative that only you and your friends could be part of the house of Israel. And then you say, even these people in Spain were part of my team, but you neglect what they've actually taught about the Torah. And this is my one point that I'm still seeing you can't address, because you're just going back into time and trying to prove that the original Israelite must have been black. So that that means the Torah that they wrote down in 1100s. What does that have to do with the color of the original Israelite? Let's address the question.
So you deflected into what does the color have to do with the Torah?
For certain. There's no question about that. You get a whole religion out of this whole thing, leaving the Torah in your past.
But the whole thing that you're trying to prove is that you guys are the original Israelites, and when you were in Iberia, you guys were writing about stuff, saying that you were the Jews from 500 AD to like before the Spanish Inquisition. You guys said you had the records. You guys said you've always kept Torah. I mean, have you guys always kept Torah? Have you always guys kept Torah and knew about your Hebrew traditions and customs?
There has not been one year or 1 week that a Shabbat has not been kept since the destruction of the temple without fail. There hasn't been. Wait,
the first temple or the second temple?
I would say the first temple. When Ezra and Nehemiah came back from Babylon.
So basically, you're saying you haven't missed a Shabbat since the first temple that was erected during the time, like basically around 900 BC. So you're going back almost 3,000 years. So wait. So if you haven't missed not one Shabbat, and of course if you haven't missed Shabbat, that means you've always followed Torah and you've always had the language of Hebrew. Why is it that before the creation of the state of Israel, that the majority of people living in the Pale settlements in southern Russia, in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, or Turkmenistan, or Kyrgyzstan, Eastern Europe, whatever you want to call it, between Caucasian, why do people come out speaking the Germanic, Slavic, and Turkish language? And it wasn't until they went to Hebrew school and they infused modern Hebrew into their original ancestral language that you come up with the form of the language called Yiddish. Most Ashkenazi Jews that are 80 years old, before they even had 1948, the state of Israel, I asked them, what was your language before you learned Hebrew? They said, we were a Turkish, Slavic, Germanic people. I said, where did Yiddish come from? Everybody that is old enough to be in the Holocaust, they said, we went to Hebrew school. We had to go to Hebrew school to learn this. We didn't know this. This was our ancestry from Central Asia. And so you guys infuse the language. You guys didn't just keep the Hebrew language from the first Shabbat back in the first temple and kept speaking Hebrew all the way until today. You guys had an ancestral origin, which is from Japhet, and you guys merged Hebrew with your Turkish, Slavic, Germanic, Central Asian, Eastern European language and came up with Yiddish. You know Yiddish is not real Hebrew. But now, wait a minute. You know this. I mean, you know this. You know this. You cannot say that you're the original people of the book because you don't even know how to write and read Paleo Hebrew. That's what they were writing back in the day.
All right, let him answer that.
Yeah. He comes and asks me, how is it possible these guys in this region spoke that language? This region spoke that language. How is it possible you speak a good Chicago slang? How is it possible you got a good English? Is your whole community reading Paleo Hebrew? According to your logic, if they're not, then they're not the real people of Israel. Yeah, my people were sent into exile just like the whole house of Israel. You just built a whole logic that discredits your whole thing. Just as you don't know Paleo-Hebrew doesn't mean you can't be from the house of Israel. When Ezra and Nehemiah came back from Babylon, they had to reteach the people everything. Why? Because they went into exile. We never went a generation without a sage representing the Torah for the children of Israel. And I'm asking you specifically about a 700-year period of sages where you say they were from the real people of Israel. And I have what they wrote down, and it was in Hebrew. They wrote Hebrew poems. They spoke Hebrew amongst each other, and when they didn't want to converse in the Holy Tongue, they spoke Ladino in Spain, not Yiddish. They spoke Ladino. But these people had a unified.
Ladino is a Romance language. You know that. You know what the Romance language. You know what the Romance language is coming from.
Just like you speak English, bro. You're in the exile. You learn the language of your exile.
English is a Germanic language, so it's a come from a different family. Okay, so the Romance language is also tied into Latin as well. So you guys speak Ladino, or whether it's Yiddish, it's still not Hebrew. No, you guys are not speaking ancient Hebrew.
We're speaking the language of our exile land, and that theme is across the whole entire globe, including yourself, who is speaking English right now.
Wait a minute. The Arab. Remember, in the Bible it says that the children of Israel will lose their heritage. Now look at the Arabs. The Arabic language existed since 500, 600 AD. People today still speak Arabic. They have one religion, Islam. They speak Arabic, one language. You guys claim to not miss not one Shabbat since the first temple. But you guys still don't know how to read and write Paleo-Hebrew. Well, tell me what happened. What happened, Harry Rosenberg? What happened? Tell me.
You could ask Ezra and Nehemiah, because I'm sure this was already the same time they started writing the Asherah.
Ezra and Nehemiah, I can't ask them because they're dead. They're dead. They've been dead. So how am I supposed to ask them? So why can't you tell me the answer since you followed every Shabbat since the first temple? Why you don't know how to speak and read Paleo-Hebrew? That's what they was reading right there. They weren't reading this modern Hebrew, block Hebrew that we call today Hebrew.
All right, let him answer real quick, Avram.
Your answer. Let me go back. I'm going to be very blunt right now. Let me go back to the basic thing.
Were the children of Israel, according to Genesis chapter 10. Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons. For real, and these were the children of Israel, according to Genesis chapter 10. These were the children of Israel, according to Genesis chapter 10. These were the children of Israel, according to Genesis chapter 10.